I brought my son mountain climbing with the intention of killing him. Standing at the cliff's edge, ready to act, my hands were trembling. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But thinking of all his disturbing behavior lately, I finally steeled my resolve. Just then, my son suddenly turned around and stared at me. That look in his eyes made my heart skip a beat. The reason I was doing this was because my wife had accidentally discovered our son's diary. It contained detailed plans for brutal murders. What terrified me most was that all the targets were his classmates. My wife and I began to panic. Our son had always been odd since childhood, but I never imagined he'd have such horrifying thoughts.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I'm so sorry.
The next day, his homeroom teacher called us to school. She said our son had threatened a female classmate, saying he would kill her. The school, fearing things would spiral out of control, suggested he take a temporary leave. I had no choice but to agree. On the way home, I asked my son why he'd done it. He simply said the girl had annoyed him. I was too angry to speak. The neighbor's barking dog interrupted our conversation. I saw my son's face instantly turn vicious. The next day, that dog was gone. I immediately suspected my son was responsible. I was convinced a demon lurked within him. Sooner or later, he would cause a tragedy. That day, I saw news about a hiker falling off a cliff. A terrible idea formed in my mind. I decided to take my son mountain climbing. I would push him off the cliff when I got the chance, to prevent him from harming others in the future. The next day, I brought my son to the location. Snow covered the branches. The surroundings were eerily quiet. When we entered the deep forest, I pretended to take a phone call. Then I moved behind my son. We soon reached the steep cliff edge. Just one gentle push, and my son would plummet into the abyss. But when my hand touched his backpack, a sharp pain pierced my heart. Looking at the child I'd raised for 20 years, I simply couldn't do it. I struggled internally for what felt like forever. Finally, I made up my mind. But just then, my son suddenly turned around. His face showed a fierce expression.
What are you doing? Shouldn't I be the one asking you?
I instinctively stepped back. It turned out my son had known all along that we'd read his diary. He'd deliberately written those murder plans. He wanted to get our attention. He hoped we would care more about him. Hearing my son's words, I felt my heart break. Only then did I understand. My son was just using this extreme method to express his dissatisfaction with us. After a heart-to-heart conversation, my son and I finally resolved our differences. He even pulled out a travel itinerary. He said he wanted to go to Iceland with friends. He hoped the trip would help him adjust his mental state. Hearing this, I felt deeply guilty. I decided to fully support his trip. I covered all the travel expenses. When we got home, my son gave us a warm hug. This brought immense comfort to my wife and me. Later, my wife told me the neighbor's dog had been found. I had misjudged my son. Thinking of what I'd almost done at the cliff, I couldn't help but cry tears of regret. However, the story didn't end there. Not long after, I saw breaking news while at work. There had been a shooting at my son's school. Many students were dead. I was terrified for my son's safety. I rushed anxiously to the school, only to be told the gunman was my son. He had already shot over 20 classmates. He was holding 8 hostages. The police wanted me to convince him to put down the weapon. My world completely collapsed.